Okay, now on these spruces, most of the spruces we see are planted too low. That one, if you can see under there, there's the root ball. You can actually possibly see some burlap in here. Here's the backfill, okay? Now that's about 3 or 4 inches too high, but I'd rather have that than have it be too low. Sometimes we come in here and you can actually see a layer of dirt over top of the lowest branches, which tells me that that tree is planted a foot too low. You can always backfill over top of that, okay, and cover up that root ball if it's up too high. Plus, you're always going to get a little bit of settling. When you backfill the dirt, it's never as compact as it was when you dug it, so that tree's going to sink a little bit. So in a year, that tree actually might be level with the ground. And it's a good, nice green color. It's got active tips. Those are the new leaves, the new branches coming out with the needles. Okay, so all indications are good. And then when they planted it, they left it a little bit high. If you can see the root ball here, that's where they spaded it out of the nursery. And that's a little bit high, but that's okay. I would rather have a tree be a little bit high and be out of the ground. I can always backfill rather than too deep, because you don't want to smother that on the inside. And you can actually see where they've cut the burlap away and peeled back that metal basket. There's a basket that holds this, and that helps them transport it and helps them lift it into the ground. So that's actually a pretty good deal. So Jake Schmillen of ArborWise brought me on board to look at a project he was doing down in Jackson Hole. And we were supposed to go in there and try to figure out what's going on wrong with these trees. And he'd been fertilizing for a few years and gotten a little bit of growth, nothing spectacular. So he decided to do some exploratory surgery, and he had a stinking suspicion that these trees were planted poorly. And we're here talking today about spruce trees, and I've talked about spruce trees before, how they've evolved in a riparian area, which is an area down by the river, very cool, very organic. This is a forested riparian area for all intents and purposes. And we're talking about spruces, and we're in here limbing up these spruces in here. We've also talked about seeing a flare on the roots, and as you can see, this one not only doesn't flare, it almost looks like it goes in a little bit. It goes in a little. Yeah, little did I know what I was looking at, because about 4 inches down from there, we found the twine that was on the original root ball from the nursery. So we go in to limb up the trees, take out the lower limbs because they were really dense at the bottom, open them up, open up airflow. As we did that, we started to realize that they had no root flare. They had no evidence of the roots going out, which meant they were buried. Oh boy.
Every night I sit and pray.
So we're going to take off the lower branches that are dead. We're going to open up this trunk. See, these limbs are totally buried in the ground. That tree's planted about a foot too deep. Look how much nicer that's starting to look. Airflow. Pull this dirt back away from the trunk too.
Pieces missing from a puzzle. I cannot erase his memory.
Okay, check this out. Look at that branch. Spruces do not make branches that close to the ground. That branch is totally buried. It's probably hitting the trunk like 6 inches down. Clearly planted too deep.
Yeah, 5 or so layers deep within some type of webbing that they use to keep the burlap wrapped around.
So after 10 years, that burlap is still just as brand new. Looks like it was just put in.
So this was wrapped around, like so, around the trunk.
Awful.
I sit and I watch the world go by.
You can actually see.
Oh wow!
Here,
there's
the
root
basket
ball.
is here,
Yeah.
where it never established a root, and a high wind actually pushed
Yep.
it on the tree, pulled the basket out.
So we start removing the top couple inches of topsoil and find burlap, we find twine. So our fears are confirmed. They're planted way too deep. And then we have to employ a tool called an air spade. And this is pretty cool. What it is an industrial compressor hooked up to a hose to a basically rod that puts out air from a nozzle just like you would a pressure washer, only using air. We can take out 4 or 6 inches of dirt from around a tree and not disturb any of the roots. It's fantastic. So we started that immediately. Wow. What we found after we air spaded was truly amazing. And the pictures speak for themselves.
This is not a man who has been wallowing in the mud like a pig. No,
No,
he's been saving trees.
The
Come
mud
out here and look.
Wow.
The basket's left intact.
So this one's hand-chopped
And the baling twine, about 5 or 6 inches or layers thick. And then the baling twine, the stuff does not break down. Look at the posits out of the whole tree. It looks like it's living. This one's different rope on this one, same deal.
Wow.
And look how it's actually cut in. My finger is still not touching the end.
Pathetic.
Wow.
So when you're buying trees, if you're not planting them yourself, you have to be involved. You have to have someone who knows what they're looking for involved in the process, or this can happen to you. Those trees were planted 10 years ago, a decade. They've barely grown. Think about how beautiful they would be. And they're lucky that they were planted in an area like that, or they would have died. No question. These trees are going to be fine, but remember, if you're not personally involved in the planting process and your property manager doesn't have the skills, hire an arborist. Have them oversee the project and the product, and you won't be sorry. And we'll see you next time.
Life, yeah.